Welcome back to the Expat Financial Blueprint, the show that helps you build a solid financial foundation right here in Asia. Now, today we're going to be diving into something that's really relevant for expats in Vietnam. We're talking marriage and asset protection.
Ooh, yeah,
And, love, it's beautiful, it's amazing.
absolutely.
But it's important to understand, the money side of things can get complex, especially in a dynamic environment like Vietnam.
Yeah, for sure. And it's something we see all the time at Wealth Architects Global.
Yeah.
Many expats just aren't aware of how things work in the Vietnamese legal system and how it can affect their finances, especially when it comes to marriage.
And, it really is a big deal. To really get a sense of how important this is, let's think about a pretty captivating story. You might remember Bam Thu Heng, the actress,
Oh, yeah.
considered the Marilyn Monroe of Vietnam. Well, she ended up in this very public, very lengthy legal battle with her ex-husband, Vietnamese American. And they were fighting over, well, a whole lot of assets. It went on for 13 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a really good example of how these issues, they're not just theoretical, they have very real consequences. And it also kind of highlights a really key part of Vietnamese law. Assets that you get during a marriage, they're usually considered shared property, regardless of who actually paid for them.
So let me get this straight. Even if I bought a property with my own money, but it's in my spouse's name, it's still shared.
Yeah.
That's a bit different from what a lot of expats are used to back home.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to get a clear understanding of the laws in Vietnam, how marriage works, divorce, and how assets are divided.
So what can expats actually do to protect themselves? I feel like we're kind of tiptoeing around a sensitive subject here,
Yeah,
but it's something that needs to be discussed for sure.
absolutely. One of the best ways to protect your assets is a prenuptial agreement. Now, I know in Vietnam they can be culturally sensitive, but they are legally recognized and can be really helpful in providing clarity, and protection. A prenup allows you to clearly spell out what's yours, what's theirs, and what you both own together. This can potentially minimize disputes if, you end up getting a divorce.
Okay, that makes sense. But I know a lot of expats, myself included, we were hesitant to bring up a prenup at first. It felt a bit awkward, almost like you're already planning for the relationship to fail.
I understand where you're coming from. It's a common feeling. It's important to think about it differently.
Yeah.
A prenup, it's not about expecting failure. It's about being smart with your finances and making sure both partners are protected. It's about talking openly and honestly about money right from the start.
Yeah, makes sense. And speaking of potential pitfalls, I've heard stories about expats who put their properties in their Vietnamese spouse's name just for convenience, thinking it'll simplify things.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that happen. Unfortunately, it's a pretty common mistake. While it might seem easier, in the short run, it can actually backfire. The foreign spouse can end up in a really tough spot if things go south.
Mm-hmm.
We saw that in the Bam Thu Heng case, no prenup. And the way assets were held, well, it just made things really complicated.
Right, so a prenup is something to seriously consider. Are there other options? Let's say someone's planning to settle down in Vietnam long term. What else can they do?
For those looking to really put down roots here, they might want to think about getting Vietnamese citizenship. It gives you basically the same property rights as Vietnamese nationals, evens the playing field quite a bit.
That's interesting. Becoming a citizen's a big step, though. How about folks who are already here, maybe dealing with things like inheritance?
Inheritance, well, that can definitely get tricky for foreigners. If a foreigner wants to inherit property, they need to be meticulous, really pay attention to the details. It's not enough to just have a will. You need a thorough property evaluation, title searches to uncover any hidden stakeholders, and sometimes you even need to have tough conversations with family members to figure out who gets what.
Wow, it sounds like inheriting property in Vietnam is a whole other ballgame. You need a detective to find the hidden details, a lawyer to understand the laws, and a therapist to handle the family discussions.
Yeah.
It's definitely not something to take lightly.
You hit the nail on the head. It's complicated, and that's why we always recommend getting professional help to make sure you're protected.
Makes sense. We've been talking about what can go wrong, but I'd love to hear some real stories, case studies that really illustrate these issues. Can you share some examples of where things have gone wrong?
Sure, we've seen a lot of situations that really underline how important it is to be prepared and informed. For example, we had a case where, while a Vietnamese woman, she actually faked paternity tests to sue multiple men for child support, including an American client. It really shows how important it is to do your due diligence. Don't just take things at face value.
That's pretty shocking. It really highlights the importance of understanding the legal system and having people you can trust to help you.
Exactly. Another case, this time an American client, he ended up losing access to his assets during his divorce because they were in his Vietnamese spouse's name. It emphasizes how risky it is to not have a prenuptial agreement or a clear plan for protecting your assets.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even though love is built on trust when it comes to finances, having a more formal approach is often necessary, especially when you're dealing with different legal systems and cultural norms.
I couldn't agree more. And it's not just about protecting yourself from bad outcomes, it's also about making sure things are fair and equitable for both partners.
Okay, so we've seen the potential pitfalls, and it's clear that having a solid plan in place is essential. Let's go back to prenuptial agreements for a second.
Mm.
You mentioned they can be culturally sensitive in Vietnam. Can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, so traditionally in Vietnamese culture, talking about a prenup before marriage, it was kind of taboo. It's like you're already thinking the relationship's going to fail. But thankfully, things are changing.
So it's less about predicting a breakup and more about financial responsibility.
Exactly. More Vietnamese individuals are becoming financially independent, and they're realizing how important it is to protect what they've worked for. It's a shift towards a more modern and pragmatic approach to marriage and finances.
That's encouraging. Sounds like people are becoming more open about talking about money, which is a good thing for everyone involved.
Definitely. And while it might still require some sensitive conversations, a well-written prenup can give everyone peace of mind and clarity. It sets a foundation of honesty and understanding right from the beginning, which can only make the relationship stronger in the long run. It's interesting, it's not always just about the legal side of prenups, it's about communication, having those open conversations with your partner, talking about your money goals, what you expect.
Right, for sure. I think a lot of expats, especially those who are new to Asia, might not realize just how important those conversations are. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of being in a new place,
Yeah.
but you got to make time to get on the same page financially. Saves a lot of headaches down the road.
It really is like building a house, right? You wouldn't just start building without a solid plan. And your finances are the same way. Knowing where you both stand financially can prevent a lot of problems.
And speaking of blueprints, that's what you guys at Wealth Architects Global do, right?
Yeah.
You help expats create those financial blueprints tailored to their situation, their goals.
That's exactly it. We
Yeah.
take a look at the whole picture: asset protection, investment strategies, retirement planning, estate management, you name it. We want our clients to feel good, knowing they have a plan no matter what happens.
So for those listening, maybe they're feeling a bit overwhelmed. What's a good first step? What can they actually
Well,
do?
start by taking a look at your current situation, really assess it. What do you own? Where are your assets? Do you have a will, a prenup? Once you know where you stand, then you can start thinking about where you want to go, your goals, and what steps you need to take to get there.
I know it can feel overwhelming, but it's better to deal with these things now than to wait till there's a problem, right?
Exactly. We see a lot of clients who come to us after something has already happened: divorce, inheritance issues, market crashes. And while we can help them navigate those situations, it's always better to be prepared beforehand.
So a little bit of prevention goes a long way, as they say.
Couldn't agree more. And that's why we offer consultations. You can sit down with us, tell us about your situation, and we can give you some personalized advice. There's no one-size-fits-all solution, which is why that personal approach is so important.
You mentioned consultations, and I think it's worth pointing out that you offer those for free, right? No pressure, just a chance to chat and get some initial insights.
That's right. We believe that everyone deserves good financial advice, whether they end up working with us or not. It's about empowering people to make informed decisions, and that starts with providing clear, easy-to-understand information.
It's like a financial checkup. You go to the doctor for regular checkups. It makes sense to do the same for your finances, especially when you're living abroad in a complex place like Vietnam.
I like that, a financial checkup. And just like a doctor can catch health issues early on, we can help you identify potential financial vulnerabilities, suggest ways to reduce those risks.
So let's switch gears a bit and talk about something that often gets overlooked: inheritance. We talked about it briefly earlier, but I think it deserves a deeper dive.
For sure. Inheritance laws in Vietnam, they can be quite tricky for foreigners, and there are cultural factors to consider as well.
For instance, I've heard that even if you have a will, your Vietnamese family members might still be entitled to a part of your estate. Is that true?
That's a common misconception. While having a will is definitely important, it doesn't always override Vietnamese inheritance laws, which tend to prioritize family, even distant relatives.
So what can expats do to make sure their wishes are respected when it comes to inheritance?
One option is to set up a trust. A trust can hold assets outside of Vietnam, and it can distribute those assets according to your instructions, regardless of what Vietnamese inheritance laws might say.
That sounds like a good strategy. But I imagine setting up a trust is probably pretty complicated.
It can be, but that's where we can help. We have a lot of experience setting up trusts for expats, making sure they're set up properly and follow all the rules, both here in Vietnam and internationally.
All right, let's move on to something a bit more positive. Growing your wealth in Vietnam. We've talked about protection, but what about opportunities?
Well, Vietnam's economy is growing fast, and there are definitely chances for expats to build wealth here, but you have to do your research, get good advice, and spread out your investments. Diversify.
And I'd imagine having a financial plan is key to making the most of those opportunities, right?
Absolutely. A good financial plan, it's like your roadmap. It takes into account your income, expenses, goals, how much risk you're comfortable with, and your time horizon. It's your blueprint for financial success, whether you're looking to grow your wealth, protect what you have, or plan for retirement.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into marriage, asset protection, and financial planning in Vietnam. We hope you learned some valuable insights and feel empowered to take control of your financial future.
Remember, knowledge is power, but taking action is key. Don't just listen to this deep dive. Take what you've learned and put it into practice in your own financial life.
And if you're looking for some personalized guidance, don't hesitate to reach out to us at Wealth Architects Global. We're here to support you on your journey to financial security and success in Asia. Until next time, stay informed, stay proactive, and stay financially savvy.